our organisation shortly. In 2 years' time, Rio de Janeiro will be hosting the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development for 2012. Informally, this is known as the Earth Summit and Rio Plus 20 due to the first conference, as most of you would know, taking place in 1992. What we're here to present to you today is some background information on the themes of the conference, particularly highlighting the green economy theme, the process towards the UN Conference on Sustainable Development, with the aim of stimulating discussions. And these discussions we hope to feed into the preparatory policy process. A questionnaire released by the Secretary-General on Sustainable Development will guide the discussions today, and this is with the aim of responding to his questionnaire from Scotland to then feed into the Scottish Government and to the UK Government to feed into this international process. So a report will be created following today, and this will be disseminated. Essentially, we're also here to raise awareness of the Earth Summit and mobilise organisations and individuals to be involved locally, nationally, and thereby internationally in the preparatory process. Quite naturally, as Ruth has very well highlighted, there is a lot of distrust about these international forums with the collapse at Copenhagen and the political passe in climate change negotiations. And it really has brought into question this whole idea of resolving the Earth's problems, resolving environmental issues in the international forums. And I'd probably like to just highlight at this point, why the climate change negotiations have been quite rigidly based on key targets and specific measures. We really do consider the Earth Summit is a platform that offers an exciting new opportunity, and it's an open platform where we're going to consider the interactions between the environment, the social and the environmental altogether, the economic altogether, and we've got a broader prism through which to create solutions here. And the green economy theme really does give us a bit of creativity, and right now at the stage we're at, local ideas and local case studies are definitely going to be feeding into this process. Throughout this process there's been a lot of talk about reviving the spirit of Rio. And the spirit of Rio, Belinda highlighted a lot of the documents, Agenda 21, these key documents that are still around today that came out. And it was quite an exciting time, although perhaps the implementation side hasn't always followed through. But we really want to try and reignite the spirit of Rio, and I hope that your discussions today, you approach with optimism and a bit more liveliness. All right, so moving on. This is our agenda today. So I'll just be providing a bit of information, background on Stakeholder Forum, the UN Summits on Sustainable Development, and then we'll be going to section 1, where Hannah will be taking us through green economy, international debates and policies. So this will just be looking at a lot of the discourses that are circulating at the moment, where the preparatory process is in terms of policy discussions. We'll have a question and answer session then, probably a bit of information overload, but bear with us, there'll be a tea and coffee break. And then I'll introduce to you the areas that we'll be discussing within groups of 10 in the afternoon, in the roundtable discussions. Stakeholder Forum, tiny bit about us. I'll rush through this. We are Stakeholder Forum for a Sustainable Future, an international multi-stakeholder organisation working on sustainable development. I guess you immediately say, well, what's that? Our work essentially provides we act as the interface and a bridge between civil society and UN institutions, multilateralism and global civil society. And we really aim to provide a bridge between those who have a stake in sustainable development and the international forums where a lot of the decisions are made. So our involvement in sustainable development dates back to 1987, when our organisation was conceived as the first national committee in the UK for the United Nations Environmental Programme. In 1992, the Rio Earth Summit, and at the 2002 Johannesburg World Summit on Sustainable Development, we played critical roles in the preparatory process and in the follow-up. Happy to talk more about that offline. I won't go into too much detail about it now. At this stage, with the UN Conference on Sustainable Development endorsed in 2009, just in December on Christmas Eve, a great gift for many people in the room, I'm sure. Since then, we've been developing a policy program of work towards the summit as the recognised partner of the UN Department for Economic and Social Affairs. So that's about us. On to the Earth Summit history. Now, I just wanted to sort of get an idea in the room. Who is familiar with the Rio conference and the Johannesburg conference and had some level of involvement? Raise of hands. So is that nearly everyone? Okay. That is essentially the majority of the room, so I won't go into too much detail about these slides, but I'll just highlight a few things. Obviously, 1972, a year which marked a turning point in the development of international environmental politics. 1987, when we had the Our Common Future report of the World Commission on Environment and Development, known as the Brundtland Commission informally. This report is suggested to have enshrined at a global level a common understanding of what is sustainable development, and the definitions from this text are still cited today. Belinda highlighted earlier 1992 at Rio, Agenda 21. And this is, I'd just like to point out how the significance of this document with that it clearly delineated stakeholders and it promoted this idea of having civil society engagement in sustainable development, that we can't implement this, we can't achieve it without the engagement of various different actors. So I've just listed those ones here on the slide. There's 9 groups that were marked out. I'm sure this is all familiar to many of the people in the room. I'll move on now just to the roadmap, which might be new to some, but familiar to others. So essentially, I'm just going to move quickly. It's working. We are here. We've got the resolution passed in December 2009. The first preparatory committee has already happened. This is in the build-up to the Earth Summit. There'll be 3 preparatory committees and there'll be 3 intersessional meetings. The preparatory committee meetings are the formal policy workshops that build this agenda that will reach here. And at this point, first preparatory committee has occurred. There's been a questionnaire that has been released by the Secretary General, and has been asked for feedback from all member states, major groups, and UN agencies for a report that will then, so all have to submit by October 31st, and then this will feed into the preparatory committee number 2. Preparatory meeting of the committee, the second one in, March. The intersessional is in January, and so this will be an informal, sort of slightly more informal time to discuss the outcomes of this report. So if we leave really engagement to this stage, it's difficult to have any impact on the policies that are created. Essentially, as we move along here, the agenda will be set, and when we get to here, the text will be nearly cooked. So it's a really exciting time to be having these discussions around the agenda items that will be the basis of the Earth Summit. And I will now pass you over to my very capable colleague, Hannah, who will be talking about the specific debates going on at the moment around the green economy.
Thank you.
Any questions on the process, we'll just leave till after this stage.